Hello, I'm Oliver and this is Deep Cuts, a channel dedicated to music for lovers of music. So first off, thank you so much to all of you. In 7.5 months, Deep Cuts has gone from having no subscribers to 10,000. It's just an amazing jump, and it's all thanks to all of your kind words of encouragement, your constructive criticisms, your feedback, the comments and discussions that have been going on in the videos. It's such a rich community that's come out of the ground, really, come out of nowhere, and I'm really proud to be a part of it and be bringing you guys content every week, and I will be doing it for as long as you guys enjoy watching it, so let's all keep building Deep Cuts. This video suggestion was made by a couple of people on Twitter because I asked what should I do for the 10,000 milestone, really, and they said, well, talk about your favourite albums. I'm kind of had to compromise because I cannot pair my favourite albums down to 10. It's just impossible. So I've kind of compromised a little bit, and I'm going to talk about 10 of my favourite albums. Hopefully that's not too much of a compromise, but yeah, so I'm going to talk about 10 of my favourite albums, 10 albums that I have a personal connection to and why I have those personal connections. Orbital, Insides. In my eyes, one of the greatest records ever made. This album just really, it feels so timeless to me. And perhaps some of the drum beats are very ostensibly 90s, but for the most part, the dense bricolage of samples and beats coupled with that really abstract artwork from John Greenwood, it just makes for a piece of music that transcends its original setting. This record is techno with a layer of ambience. It's not heavy-handed except when it wants to be. It knows how to soar and when to simmer. It is intricate and impressive as much as it is emotional and light-footed as well. Brothers Paul and Phil Hartnell are not afraid of mixing styles and sounds up on this record, which gives the whole thing this spacious quality. It gives it a room to breathe, and it has this unabashed confidence about it, which I think you will notice if you listen to the record. Opening track, The Girl with the Sun in Her Head, is a lofty, vibrant techno track. It's got this positive streak throughout it. It's almost a direct throwback to the early 90s rave vibes, as well as Orbital's own early sound, because at this point they were starting to experiment a little bit more. Their music was becoming more expressive and more considered as well. Petrol does everything it can to set that notion on fire. See what I did there? It has this really menacing synthetic atmosphere and these intense drum samples. The thing that really puts this record up there for me, though, is the experimentation the Hartnell brothers start developing after that opening 1-2 on the album. You have tracks like The Box Part 1 with its beautiful tuned percussion, and you have these really ambient, gorgeous atmospheres created on tracks like Dwur Budur, which is not really a word. It's one of those records that taught me what electronic music could be. It pulled away some of my perceptions, my younger self's perceptions about what electronic music is, and showed me what synths can do, what a well-placed drum sample can do, and some of the worlds that it can conjure up in your mind that perhaps other music can't do. I'll probably be playing this album forever, and I thank the Hartnell brothers for opening my eyes and ears to other forms and expressions of music. Cheers, boys. Gentle Giant, Octopus. As a musician, I've always loved progressive rock. I think the at times intricate and dizzying musical and instrumental expression that's created by progressive rock musicians really drew me into the weird and wonderful world of prog. Gentle Giant's fourth record, Octopus, however, it sits right at the peak of prog records for me. I love this album. I think it's highly creative, it's incredibly precise as well, and that's clear when you listen to the opening track, The Advent of Panurge. It also has that early 70s prog sound to it. You know the one I'm talking about, that medieval hokey sound that you either love or you hate. It's kind of anachronistic, but it's a sound that I love. But Octopus is more than that. They take that sound and that idea, and they have a little bit of a hard edge to it as well, and they're not afraid to jump from that medieval proggy early 70s sound and jumping to something that's harder. Octopus is more than that, though. It is immensely enjoyable to listen to. It's almost as if the band just want to make sure you don't get bored from start to finish, and you really don't. If you like prog, you're not going to get bored of this record. The track A Cry for Everyone, for example, it initially positions itself as a straight-up rock track, really, before jumping into these intricate sections with nimble keyboard parts and stellar drum phrases. It's just so enjoyable. Track Not is styled as a madrigal, so you have these really counterpoint vocal melodies going on, and they kind of weave themselves into other instrumentations, and it's done in a really bold but captivating way. Great record, and really up there for me in terms of prog. The Streets, original pirate material. This is an album I came to at a very crucial point in my musical education. It was a point where I was quite a lot younger. I hated popular music. You know, anything that was radio friendly was considered crap. Had permanently had a black hoodie scraped across my skull, and I'd only listened to things like Korn and Slipknot, you know, that new metal phase of the early 2000s. I mean, we've all been there in some form or another, right? I hope. I remember picking up original pirate material on like a 2 for 10 deal in HMV or something because I liked the artwork. I mean, how many of you remember doing that, you know, at a time when we didn't have streaming services and you just sort of bought albums on a whim? Yeah, I kind of miss that actually. Anyway, I took this record home and I loved it. Mike Skinner's detailed experiences of city life opened my eyes to a form of expression that I hadn't really experienced before. I had these kind of stories of city life and urban tales I hadn't heard in a musical setting that was engaging like this. And for me, this was a gateway into other forms of music, but his very British flow, his garage production, I found it really captivating. I must have played Has It Come to This about 20 times trying to learn the lyrics, you know, reading the sleeve notes, which is a funny image if you think about a 12-year-old boy trying to sing about weed and ghettos whilst he's sitting on his bedroom floor in a little southeastern town called Cliff's End. Thug life for me. It's a record I never really stopped listening to though, and as I got older and I started travelling up to university to see friends that were studying, I'd be listening to the album, and as I travelled through some of the suburbs of London, realised that his mixture of cheeky chappy spirit, social politics, sounds of the city, it really captures that that essence of a city, of a British city, certainly anyway, in a way that's difficult to explain. If you live in London, jump on the Overground and head towards Harlesden and Willesden, and as you're travelling through those northern suburbs with high-rises and people on platforms, all these things going on, I think you start to understand the sense that Skinner manages to catch in this music. I think it's really incredible. It's beautiful and poetic, but not perhaps in a way that's initially obvious, and that is the genius of it. Angelo Badalamenti, Twin Peaks, Fire Walk With Me. Ooh, a score. I spend a lot of my time listening to scores actually, and the ones that really stand out to me tend to be the ones that can exist as their own listening experience. They still can serve as a thematic reminder of the film you've seen, but at the same time they carve their own experience just from listening to the music. Angelo Badalamenti's Twin Peaks score is a score that is so good at recreating the atmosphere of the TV show. It's the oddball, quirky humour, the dense, murky atmosphere, the fear, the paranoia, and the horror at times as well. There's a feeling that everything's slightly off kilter, which obviously is a David Lynch style, and it's something that Badalamenti synthesises in his music. It is arguably unbeatable. Arguably. But I'm going to start that argument now by stating the claim that I think that Angelo Badalamenti's score for Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me is even better than his TV show soundtrack. If you haven't seen the show in the film, you probably don't know that the film takes the TV show's soapbox, quirky, oddball style and sort of throws that at the wayside and creates a really dense, oppressive atmosphere of dread. Now, the film is terrifying constantly, and it ends on such a difficult and depressing note. Similarly, the Fire Walk With Me score is also a whole lot darker. Yeah, the opening track is this smoky blue jazz trumpet line with these forlorn synths awash underneath that Badalamenti's so well known for. It's a beautiful setup to this unsettling, gorgeous score. Badalamenti's scoring is sensual and evocative, but it also has that layer of uncertainty and ominousness. Is ominousness a word? I think so. I'm only an English student, so who knows? But that's the dichotomy of this score. You have the sensuousness and you have the dread, and that creates something very unique as an atmosphere when you listen to it. But it does just work so well on its own. You don't really need to have seen the film. I mean, I love the film. It's one of my favourites. But you don't need to have seen the film to appreciate the cinematic quality of this score, or it really does, it has this defying notion to it. You just go and listen to it if you never have, because it's incredible. Radiohead, In Rainbows. Okay, an obvious choice perhaps, but I couldn't do 10 of my favourite albums list without talking about Radiohead's In Rainbows, because it is one of my favourite albums of all time. I can remember very clearly being really excited at this record's release, and it was just so unusual. Of course, it's become a famous story now with the pay what you want method, and it's in a way it revitalized the industry and changed the way that artists get their work out to their fans, and it made the whole thing an experience. I mean, we've experienced releases last year that were in a similar way, you know, things like Frank Ocean's Blonde and Kanye's Life of Pablo. You know, the releases take on almost their own artistic existence as much as the music themselves, and that was the feeling I had from In Rainbows when it was announced and it started being released and a lot of people were talking about it. I was finishing my GCSEs when this record was released, and I can clearly remember getting into a massive argument with my music teacher because he was trying to convince all of us that Radiohead was Britpop. Yeah, I kid you not, he was trying to convince us that OK Computer and the Bends was similar to Blur and fucking Oasis. He got angry too because he was one of those really arrogant buggers that thought he knew everything about music. And, you know, as 15-year-olds, we did know everything about music. So we just played him 15 Step and said, "How is this Britpop, sir?" And he just replied, "It is," and went into his office and closed the door. Pointless anecdote? Perhaps, but it does perfectly capture my memories of falling in love with this album. Every track on this record still captivates me to this day. You know, the clap loops that converge with Phil's accented drum beat on 15 Step, the fragility of Reckoner, Weird Fishes, Jigsaw falling into place. The clarity and the warm production makes this album feel a lot like a warm hug at times. I think I've used it as that quite a lot throughout my life. And, you know, just listen to a piece like the octave jumping bass part in Nude. It's something so warming about it. Oh, I just love it. There's so many ways to appreciate the brilliant 10 tracks here as well. You've got the Scotch Mist sessions. You've got the From the Basement performance that they did, and each song, even though it's slightly different in its live versions, they're so bold as pieces of music that they're so unmistakable whether they're the studio version or the live version. It's just brilliant pieces of songwriting. Radiohead are just, you know, they're an incredible band, and I got to see them in 2012, and seeing Videotape perform live probably will go down as one of my favourite life experiences. More Radiohead content on the way because I will be doing a guide in the next fortnight, so, you know, look out for that if you're looking to hear more about how much I like Radiohead. Diggable Planets, Reach In, A New Refutation of Time and Space. Oh, Ishmael. I love this record. I mean, you know, I love all the records on this list because that's the point of the video. But there's something about Reach In, A New Refutation of Time and Space that never gets tiring. It's this lovely fusion of funk and soul, jazz hop, and it's very soothing, but it's also positive. It has a sense of New York in the 90s. It captures a heatwave summer and these huge communities of people collectively experiencing social and cultural change. On a personal level, this record is something I came across at a relatively young age, and it's like some of the other records on this video. It opened my eyes up to a whole new world of expression. You know, the nimble African-American hybridity of music styles on this record opened up a world to me that's so far away from the depressingly monocultural southeast of England where I grew up. This record introduced to me the joy of funk, of soul, of jazz, of hip-hop that I hadn't really known before then. From here I began exploring A Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, The Roots, and also started searching for the jazz artists in Ishmael's lyrics, people like Charles Mingus and Max Roach. The sample these guys use throughout are inspired. You've got Casey and the Sunshine Band, Sonny Rollins, Kool and the Gang, and knowing that they sample those kind of artists shows you the layer of positivity and that vibrancy that comes from a record like this, which you do need to listen to if you haven't. A deeply important record in my own personal musical education. Bruce Springsteen, Darkness on the Edge of Town. Bruce Springsteen. Love him or hate him, and there are many people in both camps, you cannot deny his unfailing love for what he does. And also, he has defined the landscape of American music in the mid to late 20th century. I've been a fan of Bruce since I can remember, really, and I have to thank my mum and dad for that. And I have very fond memories of dad standing at the kitchen sink doing washing up, very badly singing along to Dancing in the Dark. It wasn't that bad, Dad. This record, 1978's Darkness on the Edge of Town, is my Springsteen record. It has everything that you want from a Springsteen record. It has the anthemic Badlands, it has the rock stomp of Adam Raised a Cane, it has my personal favourite ballad, Racing in the Streets. It has that the forlorn organ sound on Streets of Fire, followed by that beautiful Steve Van Zandt guitar solo. I'm not a religious person by any means, and sometimes when people bring their faith into their music, it can put me off a little bit because it can come across as quite preachy. But the funny thing about Springsteen, not necessarily Darkness on the Edge of Town because it's not thematically that religious, but other parts of his music are. The thing I find about Springsteen is that the way he conveys his faith can be quite a powerful thing to experience, not because I share the same beliefs, but just because it reveals the power in having beliefs. It's quite similar to John Coltrane's Love Supreme. Again, it's a deeply religious record, but it makes me feel positive about faith and beliefs in a way that I perhaps am not on a personal level. I'm not a religious person. And that's something I've always found powerful with Bruce Springsteen's music, that he doesn't, for me, he just shows me the power that faith can have, or not faith, but belief in something, whether that is a god or a religion. I'm digressing. But in that way, artists like Springsteen have opened my eyes up to ways of viewing the world in a different way, and perhaps thinking about how other people view the world, not just your own sort of narrow viewpoint. Another live anecdote, but me and the old man went and saw Springsteen a few years back, and it was an amazing live experience. He just has so much vitality on stage, and his music comes alive in a completely different way to what it does on record. You know, some people find the organs and the horn instrumentation cheesy. They don't like the lyrics that can be about girls and cars. But I think if you listen closely and give Springsteen a chance, you'll realise that there is all of life in his music. And Darkness on the Edge of Town is an utter classic. Dillinger Escape Plan. Ironworks. So, a whirlwind of technical wizardry, surging electronics, and ballistic fury. Thank you, Dillinger. A band that helped me cut my teeth on mathcore, and an album that literally set my balls on fire when I heard it for the first time. I couldn't believe the complexity of the music, but also the energy, the raw energy. And opening track Fix Your Face was like advice after I heard the track for the first time. Whilst this isn't perhaps the most incendiary Dillinger Escape Plan record, you need to go to Calculating Infinity for that. This, for me, is probably the most artistically focused and successful Dillinger Escape Plan album. Ben Weeman & Co. utilise electronics on this album more than they have done previously, and that might sound, if you've only heard some of the traditional Dillinger tracks, you might think, well, that doesn't sound like that's going to go together, but it coheres really well, and it opens up for such a satisfying record. The glitching sounds on Sick on Sunday go so well alongside the standard instrumentation, and you have these intense build-ups on tracks like Nong I Gong. It also feels like a completely left field move, because the first two tracks are typical relentless Dillinger sound, and then further on into the album you start to get these more spacious tracks that incorporate electronics, and it does make for a more menacing sound. Finale Mouth of Ghosts almost has more in common with Badalamenti's Twin Peaks score that I was just talking about. It's got this jazzy vibe to it before it breaks into this really epic finale. This is what Ironworks gets right for me. It's unapologetic and it's furious, but it never forgets the power of a strong melody, and that is what helped me appreciate the intensity of music like this, but also proves that it doesn't just have to be balls to the wall intensity, but by pulling back a little bit, you can make those intense moments even more intense. Just listen to the finale of Mouth of Ghosts or Milk Lizard or Black Bubblegum. It's just so well written songs, tracks that I have listened to over and over again and played on various instruments and learnt them. I just find them to be such a engaging band, and Ironworks for me is their greatest album. Oh, and another live story, Ben's headstock hit me square in the face at a Dillinger gig once, which hurt quite a lot, but I think he was playing Sunshine the Wolf at the time, so I consider it an honour, Ben. Thank you. Venice. Trying to pick an ambient record is quite difficult because I go through different ambient appreciation phases. Here at the moment I'm going through a very dominant gas phase. The Wolfgang Voigt project, Gas. I don't have a bowel problem. I realised how bad that sounds. But for me, in terms of an ambient record that I go back to again and again and again, it has to be Venice by Christian Finesse. Christian Finesse is one of my favourite electronic artists. He releases beautiful pieces of music that hybridise the simplicity of acoustic instrumentation and the lofty, ethereal sounds of glitch and drone and ambience. I love Endless Summer, Black Sea, but Venice is my Finesse album. Whenever I'm listening to it, whatever I'm doing, I seem to get transported from whatever physical space I'm in, and I get plonked down on that boat with the glaring sun above me, water gently lapping against the hull. It's just such a transformative album for me. Everything I feel about this record reminds me of why I love ambient electronic music so much. The repetitious rhythms and the gorgeous scapes tap into your subconscious in a way that other music doesn't. And it can put me into a space where I can relax, it makes me calm, but also it makes me focused and I can concentrate. This album's become a study buddy for me over the past year or so. So whether I'm focusing and struggling through Baudrillard's Simulacra or Pynchon's dense works, this album can keep me focused. This music is just on par with my psyche. I don't know how to describe it. I have a real connection to this album, and I think a lot more people would if they listened to it as well. If you haven't heard this album, you should really check it out. And if you want an understanding of the emotive, hypnotic quality of this music, just listen to the track Circassian, which is a profoundly alluring piece of music. This album's beautiful and it will go down as one of my favourite ambient works of all time, and I had to talk about it in this video. Aphex Twin, I Care Because You Do. Oh man, what a record to end on. The first Aphex track I ever heard was Come to Daddy, and I remember being quite young and thinking, oh wow, this is really heavy, I can't wait to hear what a whole record sounds like. I picked up I Care Because You Do and listened to the opening Acrid Avid Jam shred in a kind of an unresponsive stupor. It's probably one of those really early enlightened musical experiences, you know, the kind that you have, you sit and listen to something and you go, wow, I didn't know things like this existed. I still have those moments sometimes, but it's one of those really early reminders for me of holy shit, music is the greatest art form. RDJ has become a huge part of my life over the last 10, 15 years. His music has provided soundtracks to different periods of my life that I'll remember forever. You know, for example, when I first moved out of my parents' house, Selected Ambient Works was pretty much my soundtrack for that. And even more recently, Cyro, when it was released, was an endless source of comfort on 5 AM commutes across North London. But for the reason that it opened my eyes and ears to electronic music and new ideas, I have to go with I Care Because You Do. I can still remember my utter confusion of the bandy, fizzy synths converging with cinematic strings on the waxen pith, the really unsettling icked headrow, my childish delight at a track that was called Come On You Slags. The insane level of creativity and oddball strangeness keeps me listening to this record to this day, and I probably listen to this album once a month, which really is quite a lot considering the number of records I listen to keep the channel going and just you know, checking out new artists all the time. But it's always there, this album. I'm finally getting to see RDJ this year on my 25th birthday nonetheless, and I can't think of a better way to spend my birthday than listen to this amazing musician, producer, creator that has defined my musical experiences throughout my life so far. And that's it, that's my 10 of my favourite records. 10 of my favourite records, not my 10 favourite records, that would be a different thing. Obviously, you know, this list would change every day. If I sat down and tried to do this list a couple of times, and every single time I had to swap an album out, pick something else, because, you know, you just can't pick 10 albums that define you. But this is probably the closest I would get at doing this list. So let me know what you think of these records. If you have any personal experiences about any of these albums, maybe leave that in the comments section below. I know that I've been a little bit tardy with uploading videos recently. I've been so busy with my English course, but I will be uploading another video on Tuesday, and then I'll be back to weekly after that. So I'm back. See you later.